I guess this is the kind of story that people debate about and have spent, question mark, hours over the weekends at the pubs with their mates talking about the legacy of various drivers, talk about Schumacher, talk about Vettel, Hamilton, for sure. Are they the greatest there's ever been? What role does the car play? What role do their teammates play? All of this stuff. With Verstappen on the verge of setting numerous records, race wins in a year, consecutive race wins, maybe Red Bull will win every race in the year. The focus has turned to Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and the quality of their teammates. And I gotta say, Lewis Hamilton's been the one stirring this pot. This kicked it off. This is a story from the fine people at Reuters. Hamilton says his teammates have been stronger than Verstappen's. The 7-time world champion told Sky Italy that he was no more impressed with the Red Bull driver's achievements than he had been when other champions were winning and dominating. When I qualified half a second, 6/10 ahead of Valtteri, they, the media, didn't say the same thing as they say today when Max qualifies 6/10 ahead of Sergio Perez. It's blown up much more. In my personal opinion, Valtteri and all of my teammates have been stronger than the teammates that Max has had. Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Valtteri, Nico Rosberg. I don't know why they didn't put Valtteri Bottas here. I've had so many. These guys have all been very, very strong, very consistent, and Max has not raced against anyone like that. Has he? Has he or hasn't he? Well, this is the debate that will go on. So let's cover some of the angles, and then I'll tell you what I reckon before we progress. One of those names that was just mentioned, Nico Rosberg. And you might notice that he's often featured with a microphone in front of his face. So as this is want and right, he's weighed in. Nico Rosberg chimes in on Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen teammates debate. He has a point. Nico Rosberg has offered his verdict on the teammates row that has opened up between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Nico Rosberg thinks of Lewis Hamilton and he says this.
Lewis, I love you and respect you.
Hamilton set tongues wagging at the F1 Italian Grand Prix by claiming that his former teammates over the years were much stronger than anyone Max Verstappen has been alongside. Rosberg is the only ex-teammate to win an F1 championship while in the same car as Hamilton. Not literally in the same car. That would have been in the vibe, though. Speaking of strange, it's strange that Lewis talks about that. My teammates were better, Rosberg said on Sky TV. Where did that come from? Bit strange. But I do think he has a point. He had 3 world champions as teammates. That says a lot, doesn't it? So I do think it's correct. I used to do a pretty good Nico Rosberg impression. I've kind of lost it. He had 3 world championships as teammates. That does say a lot, doesn't it? Huh? So I do think it's correct. It's not really that relevant because we all know how amazingly awesome Max is driving. Max is going very strong towards the same level as Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna. He's going to be one of those clearly almost top 5 greats. Rosberg, Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso were teammates with Hamilton and are also ex-F1 champions. I feel like part of that is at least Nico Rosberg just trying to remind everyone that he won a championship. Let's give the right of reply to Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen hits out at Hamilton following teammate claim. The animosity between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen stemming from the 2021 Formula season? The animosity between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen stemming from the 2021 season keeps on giving following the Mercedes driver's recent comments on his Red Bull rival. When quizzed about the comments of his 2021 rival, which, guys, it's 2023, Verstappen... To define Verstappen as Hamilton's 2021 rival is cooked. The guy's on the verge of becoming a 3-time world champion. Unbelievable. Thanks, Tom. This is more enjoyable than the Sky coverage. I mean, I'd hope so. I'm no Nico Rosberg, but I try. When quizzed about the comments of his 2021 rival, Verstappen was unconcerned about what Hamilton had to say and rather dwelled on the fact that Mercedes have had a tough time dealing with recent losses after being the dominant force in Formula 1 for 8 years. Quoted to Racing News 365, the Dutch driver said, "Maybe he's a little jealous of my current success." This kind of statement, he possibly thinks he's winning with something like that, but it makes no difference to me. You can keep shouting and screaming that what we do is not that special. You just have to deal with yourself. So true. I feel like when Max Verstappen is winning everything that there is to win, and he's just so dominant. I mean, he didn't get pole this weekend, but I mean, he's just absolutely blitzed. He just blitzed everything. The only thing on his mind is,
mate, where's the toilet paper?
Because, I mean, he's on another level. So the debate goes on. I definitely want to hear what people think about that. Where you rate the teammates, what is important here? as you sometimes have to do, you got to call in the big guns. The good folks at the race have weighed in just in time. This is from Ben Anderson. Hamilton's Verstappen F1 teammates critique stretches the truth. Ooh, sounds promising. This might even be fair and balanced. Here's what they say. Let's compare their respective teammates throughout their F1 careers so far, see how their contention bears up under scrutiny. We're going to score out of 10 how tough a challenge each teammate was and then average them out. What they really needed to do is actually weight it across the number of years. So, we'll get to this in a second. But as you'll see here, 2007, Fernando Alonso was teammates with Hamilton for all of 1 year. So if you're going to rate Fernando Alonso very highly, but Hamilton was only teammates with him for 1 year, that's not the same as having, say, Valtteri Bottas for 4 or 5 years. That's not equivalent. Anyway, let's get stuck in. Fernando Alonso, 2007. Doesn't get much tougher than going up against the double world champion and conqueror of Michael Schumacher in your rookie F1 season. So true. Alonso, even back then, was clever, experienced, and relentlessly competitive. It helped that Hamilton was already embedded at McLaren, but even so, to match Alonso for points and beat him 6-2 for pole positions stands as probably the greatest rookie season by anyone in F1 ever. The race rating 10 out of 10. So that's them giving 10 out of 10 to Alonso in terms of how tough a competitor he was. I guess the point to be made here, this will feed into my mega point at the end. Hamilton, yes, raced against Alonso. Yes, Fernando Alonso was a 2-time world champion. Yes, it was Hamilton's rookie season. Finished level on points, though. This is the one that gets me, is because you might have noticed this gentleman was not listed previously by Lewis Hamilton. Heikki Kovalainen, 2008 and 2009. There's an argument to be made that Lewis Hamilton would have won the championship in 2007 if his teammate was not Fernando Alonso, because they took wins off each other. Obviously, it was a horrible year for both of them in terms of the tension and everything that played out. Hamilton would have been champion that year if his teammate was not Fernando Alonso. So it's telling that he got the championship in 2008 when his teammate was Heikki Kovalainen. In comparison terms, Kovalainen looks to Hamilton what Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez are to Verstappen. No real threat at all, rating 3 out of 10. I can't disagree with any of that. That's all completely fair. They say something here too along the lines of they put him in there to be a benign presence. Yeah. Then shit gets real. Jenson Button, 2010 to 2012. Hamilton went up against Button when Jenson was arguably at his peak, riding the wave of confidence created by his unlikely 2009 World Championship success with Brawn. So twice, Lewis Hamilton had a new teammate join the team who was the world champion the previous year. It's probably fair to say Button doesn't quite belong in the absolute elite category of an Alonso, but he was very smooth, consistent, and effective operator. Hamilton was somewhat erratic during that time. Somewhat erotic. We'll get to that next. When Button's deft touch at managing the delicate Pirelli tyres in a car that actually fitted him properly was also especially pronounced. Hamilton struggled to balance his high-profile personal life with the relentless demands of F1. So the race rating for Jenson Button, 7 out of 10. But it also points out here that Hamilton didn't really drive all that well during that period. They're widely considered to have been equals during that time period, right? 7 out of 10. Remember this guy? Nico Rosberg, 2013 to 2016. Hindsight suggests that Rosberg was one of Hamilton's tougher teammates. Remember they gave Alonso 10 out of 10? Simply because he made a proper fight of the World Championship in 2014 and 2016. Rosberg got better through that period, rather than being crushed under the weight of Hamilton's brilliance in 2015 in particular. True. Rosberg came up against a better balanced version of Hamilton than Button did. That's also very true. Rosberg is also the best qualifier Hamilton has faced in his career. In 2014 and 16, Rosberg was enough of a consistent threat that Hamilton had to spend the subsequent winters evolving his own approach to be more rounded rather than relying simply on being the better natural driver most of the time. I've always said that Nico Rosberg was the driver that turned Hamilton into the winning machine, the fully rounded, tough as nails, barely any weaknesses driver that he is today. That erraticness, he had to shake it off. And then, we saw how dominant he was during the Bottas era. The race rating, 8 out of 10 for world champion Nico Rosberg. Quick comment in the chat, which I'll cover. When Hamilton left McLaren for Mercedes, he lashed out at Button for unfollowing him on social media, to which Button replied, "I never followed him in the first place." That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's so good. Mr. Valtteri Bottas, 2017 to 2021. Hamilton never tires of telling people how much he loved having Bottas as his teammate. Well, I wonder why. It's damning with faint praise. Exactly. No doubt they got on brilliantly and the harmony inside the team improved. Yep. But Bottas' was apolitical, let the best man win approach meant Hamilton nearly always won. This kind of undercuts the whole point that Lewis was trying to make. Blah, 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 blah. A decent qualifier capable of going blow for blow with Hamilton in a predictable car with consistent track conditions, though not on Alonso or Rosberg's comparative level. Yada, yada, yada. The race rating 6 out of 10 for VB. And then we get to George Russell, 2022 and today. We've yet to see the battle reach gloves off stage. Yep, that's true. 2022 was skewed a bit by Hamilton taking on the brunt of the experimental setup and development work. Well, what does that really mean? I don't really agree with that. Blah, blah, blah. Hamilton has certainly got it tougher at the moment than Verstappen has. Well, yeah. The race rating 8 out of 10. The same as Nico Rosberg, the rating for George Russell. Max Verstappen's teammates, Carlos Sainz, 2015 and 16. Sainz was quick enough to create tension that Toro Rosso struggled to contain until Red Bull whipped Verstappen out of there to replace him with Daniel Kvyat. The race rating 8 out of 10 for Sainz. Pretty generous if you're talking about that period. But, I mean, given where Verstappen's gone since he was promoted to Red Bull, and Sainz struggled a little bit after that period, I think, saying that those two were comparable, pretty generous. Why this photo? Come on, guys. Lift. Daniel Ricciardo, 2016 to 2018. Ricciardo is Verstappen's most decorated and celebrated teammate so far. Okay. Was consistently among the top performers on the grid. The version of Ricciardo was probably the best we've seen in F1. Fair. Verstappen was right on his case from the first race together. Well, I mean, Verstappen won that race. But I would say the rest of that season, Ricciardo had Verstappen's measure, but mostly to the fact that Ricciardo was already in the team and then Verstappen had a bit of work to do sort of vibing in the team. Overall, he was clearly the stronger of the two, but it was always a closer running thing than it had been since for Verstappen. The race rating 9 out of 10 for Ricciardo. 9 out of 10. They gave Nico Rosberg 8 out of 10. Okay. Pierre Gasly 2019, comparable to Kovalainen. Yep. Gasly was pretty terrible that year. Race rating 2 out of 10. Don't really need to add anything to that, I don't think. Alex Albon 2019 and 2020 did a slightly better job than Gasly, as evidenced by the fact that he was kept on for a full season. Albon showed some signs of life in the final races of 2020. That's unfair. He showed signs of life here and there. He was spotty, but that was the problem. Red Bull decided greater consistency and experience was required. 4 out of 10. Not an unfair mark, but some of the comments here, I think, not what I would say. Sergio Perez, 2021 to present. Perez is just about rated the best of the bunch of Verstappen's victims. Well, they just gave Ricciardo 9 out of 10. They give Perez 5 out of 10. Okay, whatever. Perez is very similar to Bottas. Yeah, that's true. And that he does relatively better compared to Verstappen when the car is some way below its potential, but struggles to adapt as the team raises the performance ceiling. Yeah, that's pretty fair. So we've got all those ratings. Here we go. Hamilton's average teammate level, 7 out of 10. Verstappen's average teammate level, 6.5 out of 10. Even just looking at that sort of proves Hamilton's point. I think there's also some scores that are lifting this too high. Again, Ricciardo, 9 out of 10. I just don't get that. But, okay. What they're basically trying to say here is that Hamilton is it's not a clear win for Hamilton and a clear loss for Verstappen in this matter. This really brings me to my broader point, which is, what are we trying to actually prove here? I mean, Verstappen's on his way to a 3rd championship. Unless things change considerably, he'll be on his way to his 4th and 5th world championship. He's on his way to setting a new record for most consecutive wins, most wins in a season, blah, 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 blah. He's holding his teammate at arm's length, basically like a bully on the schoolyard, making every other team look absolutely stupid. And this question, I think, is starting to come up of, well, how great is Verstappen and will he go down as one of the greatest compared to the others in the sort of 3-4 world championship club and beyond? Hamilton's already laying the groundwork for, but what about? And he's not as good as me because. The reason I say that I don't think this is Hamilton making the point that he thinks he is is to say, yeah, well, Verstappen may have all these wins, Verstappen may collect some championships, but he was not as good as me because I raced against better drivers. But when you look at those numbers and you go, oh, yeah, you raced against Fernando Alonso, extremely well-rated driver. Where did you finish compared to him? Oh, you drew level. What about Jenson Button? Oh, there was a year that he beat you, and you were widely considered evenly matched the rest of the time. Okay. What about George Russell? Oh, he beat you too. What about, who did you beat? You really amassed all of your pole positions and wins, the sort of record-setting numbers during the Mercedes era when the car was dominant. So first of all, there's that. I don't want to open that can of worms, but it's there, wiggling away in the cupboard, just waiting for someone to come along with a can opener and just unleash some fury. But the thing is, when you're going to say, I drove against better drivers, you had better have also put them in the shade if you want to make that point. Because otherwise, what you're really saying is, if you're considering me and Verstappen among the best drivers there have ever been, well, consider the fact that I drove against Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button, George Russell. And it's like, well, yeah, but they all beat you. Like, is this making the point that Hamilton thinks it's making? That's what I'm trying to get at. I kind of just don't see the point of the argument. I mean, it's interesting to compare the numbers and stuff. No one's saying that Verstappen hasn't had some weak teammates. Of course he has. When his teammate was Pierre Gasly, Verstappen wasn't exactly amassing dozens of wins in a season, was he? So, I just don't know. It's also, frankly, pumping up the tires of Daniel Ricciardo and a slap in the face for Sergio Perez. It just is those things. That's all I have to say about that.